If you're interested in knowing a bit more about the new legislation brought before Parliament in the UK today, Thursday the 13th of June, about Divorce, Dissolution and Separation Bill, then this is the vlog for you. I'm Caitlin Jenkins, I'm the family law vlogger, and this vlog is being recorded on the Thursday the 13th of June 2019, which is the day that the Justice Secretary, David Gauke, placed the new Divorce, Dissolution and Separation Bill before Parliament for its first reading. So what's the background to that bill? Well, the background is the pressure over a number of years to bring about divorce reform in England and Wales. That pressure has come from various sources. It's come from families, it's come from family lawyers like myself and my colleagues at Mills & Reeve, and it's also come increasingly actually from the public, particularly following quite a lot of outcry and press coverage last year about the case of Owens, Mr. and Mrs. Owens, in the Supreme Court. In that case, it's highlighted to the public and to the press the difficulties that our existing 1970s legislation has for divorcing couples. At the moment, as the law currently stands, to get divorced in England, your marriage has to have broken down irretrievably, but you have to prove that by one of the 5 facts. And if you don't want to wait for 2 years or 5 years for a separation ground at the moment, you either have to allege adultery or unreasonable behaviour. Now, most petitions, therefore, are brought on the basis of unreasonable behaviour or adultery. And this is the bit, particularly the unreasonable behaviour bit, that causes so much difficulty and distress for couples. So after the case of Owens last year in the Supreme Court, the government announced a consultation when it took soundings from members of the public, those who'd gone through divorces, from experts in the field, family lawyers, judges and the like, on in what way it would be best to reform divorce law. On the back of that consultation period, the government then announced a few months ago its intention to shake up divorce laws to reform it. The plan that the government announced a few months ago was to introduce legislation when it had parliamentary time to reform divorce law. So the ground would remain the same, that the marriage has broken down irretrievably, but then instead of having to prove it by one of these facts, most frequently adultery or unreasonable behaviour, instead the couple could simply file either jointly or individually a notice to say that their marriage had broken down. And then after a certain period of time, the divorce could go through. So that was announced a few months ago, but we've been waiting to hear from the government as to when it was going to bring that legislation forward. And today, the 13th of June, at very short notice, the government did bring that bill before Parliament, the Divorce, Dissolution and Separation Bill. Now, the bill, from very brief review, reflects the proposals that the government had announced earlier in the year. It does get rid of, or proposes to get rid of, the fault requirement. The basis for the divorce would still be that a marriage is broken down irretrievably, but importantly, a couple can file a certificate together, a notification together, a joint notification to say they think their marriage is over, or one of the couple can file it singly. But in either circumstance, the other party won't then be able to object to the divorce going through. A period of time will pass, and then ultimately the divorce will then be permitted by the court. So where does this leave us? Well, at the moment, the bill has only passed its first reading in the House of Commons. There's quite a long way to go, but the indications that the Ministry of Justice are giving is that the bill has wide level support across Parliament. And so the hope and expectation is that they'll be able to get this bill through Parliament into law as an Act of Parliament sooner rather than later. Although the timescale at the moment is unclear, it hasn't yet been announced, I think we can have an expectation that this will now happen sooner rather than later, as there seems to be real enthusiasm from government to get this through. So what does this mean for divorcing couples? Well, our view at Mills & Reeve is that this is really good news for divorcing couples and, more importantly, for their families. At the moment, many couples have no choice but to allege some form of fault arising out of the breakdown of their marriage as a ground for getting the divorce to go through. Often they don't want to do that. They know that it increases the acrimony, it makes things much more difficult, and it actually inflames an already difficult situation, often at a time where people are trying to keep things as calm as possible in very difficult circumstances. It must therefore be a positive development for those divorcing couples if they no longer have to make those sorts of allegations of blame or behaviour. and therefore it must be better for not only the couple but also for their wider family and, most importantly, their children. So overall, the news today is very positive that this bill has now got through its first reading at the House of Commons, and we look forward to not only digesting the detail of what this will mean for divorcing couples, but also to the positive changes we think that this will make to the process of divorce for many couples across England and Wales. If you have any queries about how this law might apply to you, or anything else arising out of your circumstances if you're divorcing or separating, then you should take specialist family law advice. And as always with the Family Law Vlog, my details and the details of my colleagues at Milson Reeve are at the end of this vlog.